Hey guys, and welcome back to another video today. I'm in beautiful Barra Tijuca, and more specifically on the beach here. What a wonderful day. It's the summer days winding down. So this video is basically going to be about those of you who are wanting to come to Brazil, specifically for long-term stay or even possibly living here. So when I remember my very first time, for example, I'll start off the video that way. When I came here 2013 to live, and I ended up staying, basically living here in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. I think it was for about 10 months straight. And my long-term plan was to live here, 2, 3, 4 years and beyond. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was living here then is that you start feeling a sense of homesickness. Now, it isn't going to probably affect every single one of you. It affected me. I'll be honest with you. Back then, as a younger man, it definitely affected me a lot more. And there are ways to combat this, and I'm going to go over that in this video. But the other thing I will mention as well, now that I'm living here about 10 years later, I don't feel that sense of homesickness. Maybe because I've gotten accustomed and used to living here in Brazil. I can speak the language much better and things like that, and I feel kind of at home at this point. So there are some days where I feel a little bit homesickness, and I just sort of do the things that I'm going to tell you in the video that follows. So for those of you who are planning to come here long term or live here, this is going to be the video just for you, how to combat homesickness while living in Brazil. So one of the first things you could do to help combat and push away the homesickness could be, if you have a sports team that you follow back home, you could still find games online and watch those games and feel kind of like you're back home. You could also find locations, depending on the city you live. I think Rio is much easier to find games, where they don't normally broadcast a lot of international, like hockey or basketball or American football, football from the United States. They are getting a little bit more into those types of sports, specifically football here in Brazil, but you could look up those online, and that makes you feel kind of like, oh, you're not missing so much from back home. I try to watch some hockey games and things like that when I have time. I'm a huge soccer fan, so for me, I'll watch games here, so that really doesn't make a difference for me. It helps a lot, for sure. So that's definitely one thing you could do. Sorry about the noise. This guy is selling some coxinhas or whatever. So for me, one of the most important things, if you're living here and you've left your country, whatever country that may be, whether it's the United States or UK or whatever, it's very helpful if you go back home once a year. Try to make that trip, 2 weeks or a month, so that you're able to visit your friends, family, and sort of to get that, that feeling of missing them off your back, and you're ready to go for another year living in Brazil. I don't think that homesickness is all too common. I think it affects mainly younger people who are kind of still used to being in their home country. I don't think it affects older people or people over 30, 35 years old. I think you start getting kind of used to the good vibes in Brazil. That's one thing I should have mentioned at the beginning, is not everyone's going to feel homesick. It's going to be kind of like certain days where, especially if you don't speak the language all that well, I think that's a huge important, but I'll get back to that towards the end of the video for sure. So visiting family and friends, try to get there once a year, maybe for Christmas time or whatever. Spend a minimum 2 weeks there, and you'll be good to go for the rest of the year. So another way, in case you can't get back home to visit or whatever, you can still always do Skype calls. You could do different types of WhatsApp calls with people, anything via the internet, to talk with your family and friends back home. It really, really helps a lot. It makes a huge difference, especially if you haven't had a lot of contact with them for so long, since I've been relocating to Brazil. I think that really, really makes a huge difference. You won't feel as homesick. You won't feel as though you're missing much, especially if you're from the northern part of the hemisphere, like where I am from, or northern United States, where winter hits. you're definitely not going to be missing much there, that's for sure. So if you can make Skype calls or Zoom calls or whatever other way that enables you to have visual contact with the person, you'll be golden. You're going to feel all right. And try to do this a little bit more frequently, especially if you miss certain people. You can call them and just have a nice conversation, you know, and that helps a lot with the, goes a long way with the homesickness for sure. A really good thing to do is when you go back home for a visit or whatnot, try to write down the things or remember the things that made you want to come to Brazil in the first place. So like, for example, if I go back to Toronto in wintertime or in the fall when the weather's not exactly the best, and I'll come back to Brazil, I'll sort of, while I'm in Canada, I'll think of the things, yeah, that's why I came to Brazil. This is one thing I don't want to deal with anymore, or that I know exactly why I moved to Brazil. You know, reinforce the idea and the positivity as to why you left your country in the first place in order to be an expat in Brazil. That for me makes all the difference. You'll feel like, well, yeah, that's true, and it'll pass, and the homesickness will pass. You know, it's normal. I think it's normal to feel homesickness. It's going to happen to everybody in one way or another, or varying degrees. But I think, you know, if you can sort of remember the reasons why you came to move here, wherever you move to in Brazil, you won't feel so bad anymore. I think you'll have a better perspective, and you're just sort of like, yeah, okay, I'm going back to Brazil, and that's my home. So one of the last things I'll say about combating homesickness is you can watch different programming that you normally would get back home if you're a person that watches a lot of TV, you know, comedies and things like that. You can find a lot of it on Netflix. You can find a lot of it on YouTube. Now YouTube is so big, you know, you can find different episodes of whatever your favorite shows are. You can download the shows. You can also interact via watching news episodes of back home. You know, you can watch news broadcasts. I mean, I don't really watch much of the news. I don't watch much television, but I've been told that it kind of helps alleviate, you know, you update yourself to what's going on back home. You're kind of like, oh, okay, now I know what's going on, you know. You feel like you're not missing out, you know. So I think those are really, really important things as well. You can check out, and thankfully we have the internet, and you can easily access it via different websites, and it just makes it a lot easier for you to keep track of what's going on back home. I don't really care much for what's going on back home, but I do check once in a while. I tend to do it maybe like once a week, just sort of like, okay, I'm updated, and then never really watch it again. So that's one tip that I would suggest for you to do if you're here long term. And when I say long term, I would say a minimum of like 3 to 6 months or more. That's generally like long term. 6 months or more tends to be long term. I've been here now, I think 14 months, 16 months, something like that. I haven't felt as much homesickness since I've been coming here so many times. So I'm kind of used to the lifestyle in Brazil, and you know, of course, there's days where I miss some family members and I want to go back and visit, and that will happen. So it's all about like enjoying the moment. So you try not to think about what you're missing in the past or what's going on right now. But I'll have one more tip for you guys. I believe that will be a very useful one as well. So, hey guys, so as you can see, it looks like I changed spots here, but I'm still in Barra. The last thing which I forgot to mention throughout this video to combat being homesick, living here in Brazil or staying here long term, it's a very important one. I've mentioned it in many other videos. And I think learning the language is a very key and important thing that you have to do. And not just so much to be able to get around and do your day-to-day things and, you know, to get your needs met and things like that while you're staying here. But I think it's also, if you want to make friends, make connections with people here, I think that would really go a long way with combating homesickness. Because if you're making friends here and you're able to communicate with people who don't speak your language, it goes a hell of a long way for sure. So that is definitely, I'd say that's almost number one on this list if I had to choose. I'd say it's number one most important thing that you have to do in order to combat being homesick while away from your home country, living here in Brazil. I think that's going to be very essential in, you know, making connections, making friends, living day to day so much more easier and in a nicer comfort, rather than always being worried about how am I going to ask this, how am I going to get that if they don't speak my language. So definitely a very, very important thing that you should do if you plan on staying here long term or living in Brazil is even if you get to intermediate level, that would go a very long way and be very useful for you, especially making connections and day-to-day things. So 100% I agree, number one thing. So the last tip that I have for you guys, and this really helps, I find if you meet people who are from your own country, who are passing through Brazil and visiting Brazil or whatever, especially if you have a YouTube channel like I do, so it makes it a lot easier for you to communicate with people. But you could also find expat pages on YouTube, on Facebook and things like that, where people get together and they chat and they plan their trips and they want to meet here and they all kind of get together. So that is, for me, one of the bigger things that can help you with homesickness is if you're meeting people, especially if it's from your own country, right? And they're passing through here, you can get together and shoot the breeze, talk about your experiences here in Brazil, what you would do. You know, it's such a unique experience that you can't really experience it in any other place unless a lot of expats go there. And I can't really name a lot of places where expats go that they want to live or stay. So other visitors coming from, like, let's say US, Canada, UK, Australia, whatever, English speaking world comes here. Like, I met up with an English guy and it makes just, like, you know, your time, you have a lot more fun because you're trying to, like, show this guy a good time, and you're explaining things, what to do here in Brazil, what not to do, and you're speaking your native language. It's just, you feel a little bit more comfortable and less homesick. Honest to God, guys, take it from me, it makes all the difference. So whatever your means of finding somebody who's passing through here, I highly suggest doing that. There's a lot of different groups, like I said, on Facebook. You can look online. People who have YouTube channels who travel through here. It's an amazing time. You'll never regret it. And they're generally always good people because, you know, generally travelers are not miserable people. They're here to have a good time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a video I wanted to do for a while. I kind of wanted to do at a kiosk, but I wasn't able to get a space because it was always noisy. Here it's pretty chill. Amazing time here in Baja. Summer's winding down, like I said. So don't forget to give a like on the video if you liked it. Comments below if I missed something that maybe will help you with you know, fighting homesickness here in Brazil long term, or wherever country you're at. Actually, that the same rules would apply, I would imagine. So hit the subscribe button also if you haven't subscribed to my channel, and I'll be back with another video shortly. Take care, guys. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of the beach day today and have a few more drinks. Take care. I love you guys. Be well. Take care.